Hi! So, today, usapang school. Estudyante mode naman tayo. Madami din nakapagtanong sa akin kung pwede ko bang i-share yung experience ko or yung mga advice and tips na aking na-encounter sa pag-a-apply kung paano ba ako nakapag-aral dito sa France for my master's degree studies. Unang-una sa lahat, gusto ko pong sabihin sa inyo na madaming resources available ang ating what do you call this? Ang embassy ng France sa Philippines kung paano ba matutulungan yung mga estudyante na gustong mag-aral dito sa France from the Philippines. In fact, may mga specific scholarships sila na pwede ninyong applyan, especially sa field ng science. I think I came across that one nung nag-apply ako. So, I will put some websites na pwedeng maging useful sa inyo in the comment section, description box below. Feel free to check that out. Double yung suot ko kasi malamig today. So, yes, as a background, I moved to France about 3 years ago dahil I took up MBA, so Masters in Business Administration dito sa France. So, paano ba ako una nag-research ng mga universities? So, una kong hinanap, of course, ay mga universities na nag-accept ng international applications kasi hindi ako marunong mag-French. Madaming universities dito sa France na may very good specialties depende sa field na gusto mong pasukin. In my case, it's business. I have a bachelor's degree in business management din, so gusto ko siyang ituloy. And gusto ko mag-shift ng bagong industry from travel industry to a more technical and more modern industry. Kaya ko napag-desisyon ng kumuha ng master's or MBA. And then in my case, hindi ako nag-fifth French. So hindi ako pwede dun sa mga typical public schools, kumbaga, dito sa France, wherein required ka na magkaroon ng specific advanced level in speaking French. So, yun ang pinakaunang filter ko. I looked for schools na nag-accept ng international applications for English-speaking courses, or specifically in my case, English-speaking MBA programs. And sa totoo lang, hindi ako nag-focus lang sa France. When I was looking for my MBA degree, 2 countries ang shinortlist ko. I looked for schools in Australia and also, I wanted Europe in general. Pero sabi ko, France might be my best shot kasi, of course, ayoko namang iwan yung pamilya ko. I needed to be with them. I would need to be with them. And since my husband is a French citizen, mas madali siya in terms of administrative paperwork to do it here in France. And along with my research, I also found out that there's actually a lot of very good business schools dito sa France. I was very particularly looking at the accreditations kasi this is something na very important din sa mga MBA degrees, is that mga specific organizations for this field such as the AMBA, those kind of accreditations. So, madami silang business schools dito sa France na accredited ng mga accreditation organizations na yon. So, there's actually a lot of options. And madami din sa kanila ang nag-o-offer ng international MBA wherein you are not required to speak French so long as you provide good knowledge of or proof of good speaking English capability, you can apply. So I went and looked for that, and also I targeted Australia just because, of course, I've been to the US. I kind of have an experience of the US market then with my job, and of course Asia. Yeah, that's where we're from, no. And so Europe and Australia na lang yung siguro dalawang other regions na gusto kong i-explore a bit more. So that's why I thought of Australia, and why not? Australia is a very beautiful country, diba? So I did look for some universities that I've shortlisted. I sent out my applications to all of them. Halos pareha lahat naman ng application requirements. Of course, you will fill in the online form. You will be submitting some requirements also online. In Australia, some of them would require it a physical mail. That's what I've observed. But here in France, lahat ng na-shortlist ko, you just basically upload your scanned documents online, and then they will just ask for the original copies later on na in the process. So that's what I did. First step was go for online applications, sent out some essays. A lot of them would require you to write essays, of course. And so I did all of that. I waited for responses. I think it took me about... For Australia, mas nauna ako nag-apply sa Australia, I would say, around September of 2017, naghahanap na ako ng universities in Australia. I was more into Australia than France before. Pero medyo mahaba yung naging process sa Australia and very expensive ng schools nila. And then, around December, that same year, doon naman ako naghanap ng universities in France. And then, maybe sometime in January, mga ganyang period, I started receiving responses both from the Australian applications I had and from France then. So, if you can imagine yung time frame, medyo mas mabilis na process yung from France than from Australia, because September to January versus December to January. So, I did have a series of interviews dun sa ibang school. They've told me already that I'm not gonna be able to move forward just based on the online application and the requirements that I've uploaded online. So those dun sa mga school na shortlist ako, ang mga next step dyan would be interview and stuff like that. So I did go through several interviews. There's one university in Australia that I got into. It's Murdoch University, actually. At the same time, I also received an offer for a couple of universities here in France, pero the one that I was really eyeing for that time was IESEG in Paris. So I have two offers in my hand, the one from Murdoch University in Australia and one in France. Pero I chose the one in France for the reason I've already stated earlier. Mas madali yung administrative paperwork kung sa France kami buong pamilya magmo-move as opposed to Australia. That's reason number one. And second big reason is the cost. Sobrang mahal ng university sa Australia. I can't remember, but I'm gonna try to look for it sa aking email to give you an idea ng specific figure that they were looking into for tuition fees for both of the universities. It's public information, so I think you can see that on their websites too. So I went for IESEG. It was surprisingly a very smooth process. Like, as you can imagine, December ako nag-apply. I received an answer by January, at least the initial answer. And the whole month of January, I was working on back-to-back interviews with them. Kasi you still have a couple of interviews you have to go through, back and forth of some paperwork that they would need. And then by February, that's when I received my final offer letter from IESEG saying, I have been admitted to the program. I can start in the following school year, which in my case was September of 2018. So yeah, it happened so fast. December to February, I was already done with the process. And I had to book for my visa na by February. And my target date to be here in France was, I think, May of that year. Yeah, May. Para I have a couple of months to get settled before mag-start yung school, because I also need to enroll my son to his school here in France. So yeah, it was a very quick process. I will also link a bit more on the information of the university, because I also highly recommend the university, honestly. So in my case, yung program ko, it was a 1-year MBA program. So it's a very compact program. 1 year lang siya, wherein the program is supposed to be actually. So imagine super full packed, as in 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Meron kang classes. And yung classes mo are like 4 hours long per session. Ganun siya ka-intense, kumbaga, kasi they try to pack it. Which for me was also a very major selling point, kasi I imagined being out of work for 2 years. As like, parang hindi siya very ideal for me. I'm still young. I have a young family also to support. So, very ideal sa akin the fact na 1 year lang akong magiging jobless, kumbaga, while I'm studying or finishing up my MBA. And yeah, it went by so fast. I got my visa, I think sometime in March. And the school was also very responsive in terms of the visa requirements. So lahat ng mga letters or proofs that the embassy needed for the visa processing, they were able to provide in a very timely manner. So walang naging issue dun sa aking pagpa-process ng visa. So March, I got my visa. We flew here in France, I think end of May, beginning of June, something like that. So yeah, and then September is when school started with my university, IESEG. What's really nice about it too, like I told you already, yung cost is very reasonable. Hindi siya sobrang mahal compared to other universities. Even here, they also did not require you to pay ahead of time. Kumbaga, meron ka lang minimum percent or deposit that you needed to pay before the school started. So yung actual tuition fee was not due until maybe a week or two after the school started. So imagine, I mean, all these times ako din parang sabi ko, hindi pa ako nagbabayad dun sa school. That's kind of weird kasi I like moved my whole life in another country, pero parang hindi pa secured yung slot ko sa school kasi maybe they can still take that away from me dahil hindi pa ako nagbabayad ng tuition fee, diba? Pero I can imagine how that could be very ideal to a lot of people because maybe you just wanna get a temperature check of the new country first, diba? Maybe hindi lahat, especially if you're single, it won't be too hard to move from the Philippines to France a couple of months before your school starts, just to see how the country is, especially if you've never been to France, live here for a couple of months, ganyan, before you actually pay for your tuition fee for that university. So I think that could also be very ideal, especially in target ng university ay actually pretty young business people. So I mean, I don't have like 10-15 years of experience yet when I got into the program because that's not their requirements. I think their requirement is like 5 years or 3 years work experience lang. So just for the young business professionals to be able to get their MBA degree at an early age. Kasi hindi naman siya executive MBA program. MBA program lang talaga siya. So, September, start of school. Overall, it was a very great program. I learned a lot from it. I applied a lot of the things I learned from that program to my current job right now, which I'm very thankful for. But yeah, I will definitely have another video more focused on what it was like for me as a student, a Filipina student here in France, while at the same time taking care of my responsibilities as a mother. But yeah, for now, that's the information I can share. I think the main key takeaway for me from my application is that really do your research before you go ahead and apply for universities. Really know what you want in terms of at least the major factors that you'd like to consider, such as saan ko ba gustong mag-aral, saang bansa, saang city, ano ba yung gusto kong aralin, what program, what are my expectations. Once I have the program, ano ba yung mga pinaka-importanting factor para sa akin to choose a university and all that stuff. And then, dun napapasok yung mga personal factors or I would say the doability of it, wherein kaya ba ng budget, kaya ba ng timeline, kaya ba ng I don't know whatsoever, or paperwork, visa and stuff like that, kaya ba ng mga yan. So yes, you need to really have a strategic planning. It's not impossible to be able to study abroad if you really want to. You have so many resources. I did find so many resources online for me to help make this decision. So go ahead and do that. Especially nowadays, everything is pretty much online. You have a lot of online resources to pretty much everything. So if you really just dig deep there, may mahahanap ka. And yeah, just work really hard, put your effort on every step of the way. I mean, when I was writing my my essays, doing my interview, I really prepared for it like I would on a normal job interview that I really want to get then. So you would do the same, put all the efforts that you, especially if it's for the school that you really wanted to. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said na rin in my previous video, please do connect with me if you have any questions about something similar dito sa shinare ko sa inyo. I will be putting my LinkedIn URL in the description box below as well. I would very much love to be connected with you guys. I have a pretty good connection with some Filipino students here in France, and I really enjoy talking to them. We all have different experiences but very similar learnings along the way that we'd love to also be able to share to fellow Filipinos who aspire to also come here and study sa France. So please let me know if you need any help. I would be very happy to be able to be of help, or just be a friend if you have some questions in a student life here in France. Well, that's it for today. Thank you.